Chapter 1. Voices between currents. In the heart of the Spartan night, silence and restlessness dance beneath the flickering light of torches. The walls, once symbols of oppression, now vibrate with promise and uncertainty. The council has fallen, but the void left by centuries of obedience resounds like thunder, muffled by ancient stone. The people crowd the streets, their eyes wary, their hearts divided between fear of the ancient spirit and newly awakened hope. At the top of a time-worn staircase, Leonidas surveys the city like a soldier surveys the battlefield before dawn. He is no longer king nor exile, but a living symbol of rare and temporary freedom. His scars, once secret trophies, now denounce him as someone who has conquered the world outside, but perhaps is losing the war within. In the square, voices multiply. Some call for order, others cry out for the new. When the chains fall, all that remains is the abyss of choice. What is freedom if we do not have the courage to decide our future together? The alleys still, whisper secrets, rumors of sharp knives and hidden alliances. The true war of Sparta may only be beginning. Chapter 2. Sparta's new dawn casts a golden glow over the central square, revealing anxious faces and the marks of time on Sparta's sacred columns. Even before the first sound of the trumpets, men and women lined up near the central tribune, where old assemblies had been forbidden for generations. Now, for the first time, every citizen could be heard. The air carried the scent of morning mixed with the fear of an uncertain future. Leonidas, wrapped in his worn crimson cloak, walks among the people. The looks are divided: reverence, suspicion, and even resentment. He stops at the improvised assembly, raises his voice with the gravity of one who was once a king, but also with the humility of one who has tasted exile. Sparta has raised kings, but it is the courage of ordinary men and women that has sustained this land. May this assembly be the cradle of real decisions, not the chains of silent commands. A murmur runs through the audience. On one side, elders and old families demand firm direction, wanting Leonidas to take absolute command. On the other, young people, dirty-faced warriors, and restless mothers plead for change, so that never again will a sentence be pronounced without voice or defense. Among them, Lysandra stands out, green-eyed and alert, circling attentively, in search of hidden signs, while Andros, still young but already scarred by war, watches. They know the birth of a new order is fragile. At every corner, the shadow of inherited fear lingers. Freedom is not made only of grand gestures, but of small decisions day after day. Dawn brings light, but also reveals the scars of what remains hidden. The transition is natural, for small shadows announce approaching storms, even under a new sun. Chapter 3. Echoes of the Fallen Council. The echoes of the old regime reverberate through the streets, like the footsteps of restless ghosts. With the council overthrown, Sparta has become a chessboard of uncertainties. Noble families resent the loss of privileges, soldiers of the past wandering without a commander, all treading on unknown ground. The power vacuum pulses, creating gaps where dangers grow in the shadows. Lysandra moves like a shadow between the narrow alleys and stone houses. In the markets, she hears the murmurs of old counselors negotiating in secret. At night, she watches tombs being visited by hooded figures. Everywhere, the ancient symbol of the council, a Spartan lion, appears scratched on the walls, as a warning that history cannot be erased with a single act of rebellion. When tyranny falls, the real challenge is not to destroy figures, but the foundations that have supported them for generations. In the crowd, men and women test their newfound freedom, whispering about losses and reprisals. Hidden spies try to rebuild alliances. Children, curious and innocent, play at drawing on the ground, unaware that sometimes their games imitate real dangers. Leonidas realizes the past takes its toll. Rebuilding a city, he learns, is less difficult than untangling the invisible knots of trust and fear. Chapter 4. Invisible chains. The people of Sparta are still unaware that their greatest threat does not wear armor or wield a sword, but emerges subtly in the decisions made in the shadows. Leonidas carries a silent tension on his shoulders, to lead his people or to entrust the assembly with the power of choice. The old advisors surround him like vultures waiting for his downfall, whispering empty promises and dangerous advice. On a sultry night, Leonidas walks through the silent temple, feeling doubt growing. He hears reports from Lysandra, always watchful, always suspicious, about secret meetings, broken oaths, and clandestine alliances forged among the ruins. Andros, now a leader among the young, expresses the fear of those who grew up under surveillance. Freedom may be just another name for chaos, he whispers, echoing a collective fear. Sparta was born of discipline, but chains that cannot be seen are the hardest to break. The panorama is one of unease, neighbors who squeeze words into the dark, mothers who lock their children up early, warriors who fear silence more than enemies steal. Leonidas feels that each decision carries the weight of centuries, and that for each broken chain, the city reveals new bonds, deeper and more insidious. Chapter 5. Signs of sabotage. The nights in Sparta have become fertile ground for conspiracies. While most people rest, hooded figures slip through the shadows, quickly exchanging sealed scrolls and worn coins. Lysandra dedicates herself to tireless surveillance, knowing every corner and every suspicious look. On one of these patrols, she witnesses the exchange of signals between two former militiamen. She follows them with light steps and controlled breathing. The chase unfolds through silent alleys until a seemingly abandoned house. Inside, voices murmur about a plan to bring back the darkness and about the perfect opportunity, the chaos of the first popular vote. Lysandra, noticed, is forced to fight. The fight is dry, brutal, and brief. A punch, a fall, a muffled scream. When the dust settles, she overpowers one of the conspirators and finds on him a codex engraved with symbols of the old council mixed with new threats. Sparta does not belong to traitors. Fire purifies. Lysandra returns with the evidence. Knowing how fragile public trust is, she gathers Leonidas and Andros to lay out the risks. At the meeting, the tension becomes palpable. Andros reports sightings of suspicious meetings near the city's armory. Any act of democratic rebirth can be crushed by a calculated act of violence and fear. When the old power falls, it does not disappear. It collects and seeps like scentless poison in the wines of celebration. The next day, distrust blossoms. The city, which should celebrate the new, hides behind closed doors. Mothers gather children indoors before sunset. Young people glare at strangers and peasants. Fear, like groundwater, runs through the alleys. Chapter 6. Leonidas's dilemma alone. On the steps of the ancient temple, Leonidas contemplates the silhouette of Sparta against the reddish sky. The echo of decisions resounds like sheathed weapons, each with a price. Memories of exile and the unjust sentence pass through his mind. His dead brother, the crowd that judged him without listening, the promise of justice never fulfilled. Lysandra approaches, the dust of a sleepless night still clinging to her hair. She doesn't need to say anything. An exchange of glances says it all. Leonidas's dilemma is not only choosing between leading or delegating, but also about who he will become before his own people. Just another owner of Sparta, or the liberator who dared to trust everyone. Lysandra speaks firmly but gently.
Courage is not just about facing enemies. It is also about allowing history to be written by many hands, even without knowing where it will lead.
Taking a deep breath, Leonidas decides. He will defend the assembly, protect the right to choose, even if it costs his last drop of blood or his name in the annals of dishonor. Twilight ends, but a new determination shines in his gaze. Chapter 7. Preparations for the First Assembly. The next dawn reveals a city in unprecedented movement. Craftsmen hammer boards and nails, hurriedly building a platform in the center of the square, while weavers produce flags with the symbol of the broken chain. Excited children paint phrases of hope on the columns, and even without understanding everything, they feel the weight of the moment. Leonidas and Lysandra circulate among merchants, farmers, and unarmed soldiers, organizing groups of volunteers. To maintain order, it is no longer brute force that counts, but collective commitment. Each one has a role in protecting the new ritual of the city. Andros, leading the young people, advises, no one watches with fear in their eyes. Protect the people, do not intimidate. Rumors of sabotage circulate. Some threats arrive in anonymous notes left at the gates. Lysandra discreetly checks every corner, studying faces, testing alliances. Even in the face of tension, he feels that something has changed. There is no longer absolute silence. Now the entire city pulsates, vibrating on the edge of the unknown. Voting records are carefully prepared, guarded like relics. A city has never been so close to freedom, and at the same time, it has never been so vulnerable. Chapter 8. The Day of Truth. The sun breaks through the last mists as Sparta gathers in the heart of the square, each citizen bearing the tension of the unknown on their faces. From the humblest to the most influential, everyone feels the accelerated pulse of a singular moment. For the first time, their votes will shape the destiny of the city. There are battles won at the point of the sword, others only with the courage of the word spoken aloud in front of peers. The crowd falls silent as Leonidas takes center stage. Before the first word, Lysandra walks along the edge, attentive to the slightest movement. Suddenly she notices two hooded men approaching the archives. She intercepts them, a brief murmur, a tense confrontation. One of them throws a torch. The voting records catch fire. Chaos, screams running, flames licking at the newly born hopes. Warriors hesitate. Mothers protect their children. Elders look for Leonidas with fearful eyes. Wounded while protecting a child from the flames, Leonidas on his knees faces the crowd and, with a strong and painful voice, exclaims, "Neither flames nor shadows nor lies can extinguish the will of a free people." Lysandra, her hands stained with ash, presents evidence of the plot, holding up the papers rescued from the ashes. Andros and his allies surround the conspirators, avoiding a mass lynching. The next act depends on everyone. The moment is decisive. The history of Sparta is, more than ever, in the hands of those who dare to choose. Chapter 9. Open-air assembly. The flames have barely gone out when, before the still stunned crowd, Leonidas raises his bloody hand and refuses to cancel the vote. The records have turned to ashes, but the wounded trust needs a bigger gesture, so as not to die there too. With a trembling but determined voice, he proclaims, "If the flames have taken the papers, we still have the courage to speak in the open square. Let each voice vote in front of everyone." Today, Sparta no longer fears its own shadow. The people hesitate, looking at old neighbors, teachers, even soldiers who were once feared. One by one, in the trembling rhythm of uncertainty, the citizens advance. The vote begins, oral, open. Peasants, soldiers, war widows, artisans, and old. Generals expose themselves, sharing their choices and stories in front of the entire city. The atmosphere is tense, but contagious. The more voices are raised, the more fear gives way to pride and emotion. Mothers cry as they embrace their children, who cross the square to speak. The elderly make their decisions with decades of suppressed trembling, and young people cry out for change and justice. In the end, with the results exposed for all to see, Leonidas renounces the temptation of absolute leadership, reaffirming his commitment to a diverse, popular council elected by all. Lysandra is chosen by the people for the new council. Andros assumes the leadership of the citizen guard, not to oppress, but to defend. In the square where before only fear walked, now hope stands firm, learning to walk on its own 2 feet. Chapter 10. Hunting the remaining shadows. The victory of the assembly echoes throughout the city, but the whispers of the old shadows persist. Far beyond the celebration and the speeches, Lysandra organizes a small group to investigate the remaining pockets of the conspirators who nearly destroyed Spartan hope. With Andros leading the citizen guard, they travel through the alleys and suburbs they already know, dismantling pockets of resistance linked to the old councillors. Some try to escape via the river route. Others seek shelter in relatives' homes, but find walls erected by the now vigilant community itself. For the first time, the people understand. Protecting freedom demands continuous action, not just shouts in the square. Freeing oneself is not a single act, but a constant exercise. What was shadow resists, adapts, tries to survive in other forms. As Lysandra conducts interrogations with firmness and respect, she realizes that fear is transforming into justice. There is no thirst for revenge, but rather a search for truth, reparation, and reconciliation. Sparta finally begins to understand that the true strength of a free people lies in mutual vigilance and the daily courage to face its own ghosts. Chapter 11. Rite of purification. With the end of the conflict, Sparta seeks to heal its deepest wounds. As dusk falls, the central square becomes the setting for a ritual never before witnessed, the Rite of Purification. It was not a traditional, religious act, but a symbolic moment of reconciliation. In the center, Lysandra places on the ground the codex of the ancient council, the ashes of the burned records, and the weapons seized from the conspirators. Citizens approach in silence. Each family has brought something that represents pain or loss, letters, medallions, pieces of wall torn down during the clashes. Leonidas, side by side with Andros and Lysandra, addresses a few words to the people. Only those who recognize their own ghosts can find hope again. May every chain, every hurt, every secret be thrown to the wind today, so that only the lessons remain and not the scars. The relics are thrown into a collective bonfire, leaving only the open graves for new seeds. Children run around the fire, carrying small torches, symbolizing the rebirth of vigilance and dreams. To purify is not to forget, but to transform pain into learning. Sparta learns, step by step, to be faithful not to kings, but to the freedom. It conquered itself. The city can finally breathe, knowing that from now on, it will have to take care of its own choices every day. Chapter 12. The First People's Council. The sun returns to the square, but this time, it does not illuminate armed soldiers or untouchable councillors. A long table is set up beneath the restored columns, and citizens of various origins sit. At it, Lysandra, elected for her merits and courage, Andros, representing the youth and the guard, farmers, artisans, elders, and even former adversaries, now converted into allies of the new order. The session begins with respectful silence. There are no sacred words or imposed gestures. The members introduce themselves and report one by one the hopes and concerns of the people they represent. Around them, part of the city watches, waiting to be heard. The commitment is clear. Every decision of the council will be public, discussed aloud, recorded on tablets that no one can erase. Leonidas, present only as a citizen, observes with satisfaction. The weight of office no longer oppresses him. He sees in Lysandra the strength of someone who does not govern alone, but alongside others. Andros leads the discussion on security, proposing not fear, but active vigilance and mutual defense. Power was not taken, but shared. Authority is not inherited, but built together. In every agenda, debate, or challenge, Sparta learns. True democracy requires listeners and speakers, courage and humility. When the assembly ends, there is weariness and hope, pride and humility. Sparta is no longer hostage to its ghosts. It now belongs to those who dare to decide in the open square every day. Chapter 13. The legacy of broken chains. Days and nights pass, and Sparta's rhythm is different. Daily life bears recent marks. Some houses still bear scars from the fire, while crowded streets echo the vigor of those who are proud of their own path. Children grow up playing assembly, no longer fearing watchmen or brusque guards, but learning to listen and argue. Leonidas dedicates himself to teaching stories of courage and defeat, no longer as a solitary hero, but as part of the collective. Memory. Lysandra wanders through markets and temples, listening to complaints and ideas, protected not by the strength of the sword, but by earned respect. Andros trains young people to watch, guide, and mediate disputes. The citizen guard is a symbol of trust, not intimidation. In taverns, old enemies share bread with old allies, because distrust does not disappear by decree. It needs to be dissolved in everyday life, in small agreements and gestures of good faith. Broken chains never become whole again, but loose links can form new alliances. Sparta finally understands that freedom once conquered can only be maintained by holding hands. The legacy of broken chains is not just the end of a tyranny. It is the seed of participation, renewed with each generation. Epilogue, dawn. After the storm, the first lights of a new era dance over the rooftops of Sparta. The sky, brightened by the rains of yesteryear, now opens up to dreams that once seemed impossible. The streets, once filled with distrust, are filled with diverse voices, laughter, heated debates, songs of hope. Lysandra gazes at the horizon from the top of the walls, feeling part of something greater. Leonidas, a common face among so many, teaches his grandchildren that true courage has less to do with glory and more to do with persistence in difficult times. Andros, now a mentor and friend, inspires the young to protect not the walls, but the trust that unites them. A city is not rebuilt under the command of one, but by the will, vigilance, and tenderness of many. Each dawn demands that we remember the night before, but it only shines because someone dared to keep hope alive. Sparta, once subjugated, is reborn free not because it has erased its pain, but because it has learned from it. At dawn after the storm, every citizen knows freedom is a plant that needs to be watered every day with dialogue, courage, and memory.